different areas of the city. One of them, the most serious, the greatest amount of loss of life last night was just across the road at the Bataclan, a well-known concert hall which was packed with young people, something like 1,500 people watching a heavy metal band last night when the terrorists broke in there with guns and with explosive packed suicide belts and gunned down and then exploded their suicide belts and caused absolute mayhem there. Something like 87 people died, and the numbers still uncertain. Altogether, a night of carnage that claimed well over 120 lives, and many more, of course, seriously injured. Let me get a view on this now from Olivier Guittard, who's an international security and risk consultant who joins us now from central London this morning. Olivier Guittard, very good morning to you. A shock to Paris, but in view of the series of terror attacks on French cities and French citizens in the last few years, including Charlie Hebdo with the loss of 17 lives in January this year, should the French perhaps have seen this coming?
Actually, the government had warned time and time again of possible attack. You know that both in France and the UK, the security services foil attack on a weekly basis, and arrests are made almost daily. It is true that because of also the implication of the French in Syria against Islamic State, and the ramping up of military attacks, that made them even more of a target than even before. And remember, the first two airstrikes that France conducted in Syria were against Islamic State training camps that allegedly hosted French jihadists that were planning attacks on the homeland.
But France is clearly not the only Western nation that is taking part in the war against the Islamic State, and yet they seem to be bearing the brunt of the reprisals.
That's very correct. But if you read what the Islamic State has been saying, France is at the top of their list of targets, even sometimes before the U.S. Two reasons for that. France has a very strong counterterrorism operation, especially in Africa. They were present not only in Libya, in Mali, but also helping Nigeria against Boko Haram. And second, France is viewed by the jihadists as an Islamophobic country because of the laws that they've passed against, for the banning of the hijab and that kind of thing. So in the psyche of jihadists, France remain the big enemy.
Judging by what President Hollande has said last night and today, he plans to show no mercy in tracking down those he believes are behind these terrible attacks here. But is that going to be the right policy? Because every time the French have poked the hornet's nest, so to speak, they have been stung by the jihadists.
Look, a couple of things need to be done. Effectively, if you see what happened also with the drone strikes on Jihadi John, pinpointing and attacking the brains behind the attack could help. And that's what I think they tried to do in the first two airstrikes. You have to remember also that new information has come to light in the past 2 weeks about what happened during Charlie Hebdo, that the attacks against the supermarket, the kosher supermarket, and Charlie Hebdo were remotely controlled by a French jihadi based in Syria. And from what President Hollande has just said, he said the operation was planned abroad with help from within. So that could be the modus operandi. And if they were successful in, as I say, hitting the brains, then that would make a few dents, if you will, in the Islamic State skill set to attack. But you are totally correct. There's no way that an attack like this can be prevented in the future in our democracies. Those are soft targets. If you don't have the human intelligence ahead of the attack, there's nothing you can do.
Certainly seems to have exposed some flaws in intelligence here in France. Olivier Guittet, international security and risk consultant, thank you very much for your insight into this story. From the streets of Paris here, we just heard that the president has called for 3 days of national mourning, a great tightening up of border controls and a greater sense of security in this country as they try to combat this, what now seems a series of attacks by what the president has pointed the finger at, Islamic State, right here in the heart of the French